During the First World War, the British took Palestine from the Ottoman Turks. At the end of that war, the Ottoman Empire collapsed. Among its subject provinces, Palestine was assigned to the British to govern temporarily as a mandate for the League of Nations. This brings us all the way up to 1920 with no question of who is the sovereign. But what is the population like at this point? The historical facts are quite different from what the Arab narrative, which has been adopted by many in academic and intellectual circles, presents. In 1857, the British consul to Palestine reported, quote,
"The country is in a considerable degree empty of inhabitants, and therefore its greatest need is that of a body of population."
End quote. A British research mission prepared a little-known census by conducting a survey of the land of Israel during the period of 1871 to 1878. Based on this map, whose original size is that of a large room, it can be determined which settlements existed in those years and their size. According to these details, it is possible to estimate the size of the population there. In 1695, the author Hadriani Relandi was sent on a sightseeing tour to Israel, at that time known unofficially as Palestina. In his travels, he surveyed approximately 2,500 locations where people lived that were mentioned in the Bible or Mishnah. He first mapped the land of Israel. Then he identified each of the places mentioned in the Mishnah or Talmud along with their original source. If the source was Jewish, he listed it together with the appropriate sentence in the Holy Scriptures. If the source was Roman or Greek, he presented the connection in Greek or Latin. Thirdly, he also arranged a population survey and census of each community. Here are his most prominent conclusions. 1. Not one settlement in the land of Israel has a name that is of Arabic origin. Most of the settlement names originate in Hebrew, Greek, Latin, or Roman languages. In fact, until today, except for Ramallah, not one Arabic settlement has an original Arabic name. 2. Most of the land was empty, desolate, and the inhabitants few in number, and mostly concentrated in the towns Jerusalem, Akko, Sfat, Jaffa, Tiberias, and Gaza. Most of the inhabitants were Jews and the rest Christians. There were few Muslims, mostly nomadic Bedouins. Relandi mentioned the Muslims as nomad Bedouins who arrived in the area as construction and agriculture labor reinforcements, also known as seasonal workers. 3. No Palestinian heritage or Palestinian nation. The book totally contradicts any postmodern theory claiming a Palestinian heritage or Palestinian nation. At the same time, the historical book strengthens the connection, relevance, pertinence, and kinship of the land of Israel to the Jews, and the absolute lack of belonging to the Arabs. The records of quoted accounts of the time also support this. Chapter 9, paragraph 43 for the 1937 report of the Palestine Royal Commission states, quote,
"The road leading from Gaza to the north was only a summer track suitable for transport by camels and carts. No orange groves, orchards, or vineyards were to be seen until one reached Yabna village. Not in a single village in all this area was water used for irrigation. Houses were all of mud, no windows were anywhere to be seen. The ploughs used were of wood, the yields were very poor, the sanitary conditions in the village were horrible. Schools did not exist, the rate of infant mortality was very high. The area north of Jaffa consisted of two distinctive parts. The eastern part, in the direction of the hills, resembled in culture that of Gaza-Jaffa area. The western part towards the sea was almost a desert. The villages in this area were few and thinly populated. Many ruins of villages were scattered over the area, as owing to the prevalence of malaria, many villages were deserted by their inhabitants."
End quote. In 1931, a quote from the report of Mr. Louis French, the Director of Development appointed by the British government, states, quote,
"We found it inhabited by fellahin who lived in mud hovels and suffered severely from the prevalent malaria. Large areas of their lands were uncultivated and covered with weeds. There were no trees, no vegetables. The fellahin, if not themselves cattle thieves, were always ready to harbor these and other criminals. The individual plots of cultivation changed hands annually. There was little public security, and the fellahin's lot was an alternation of pillage and blackmail by their neighbors the Bedouin."
End quote. This was the condition of Palestine in the final decades of the 19th century, up until the First World War. A land that was overwhelmingly desert, with nomads continually encroaching on the settled areas and its farmers, a deficiency of basic facilities and equipment, peasants wallowing in poverty, ignorance, and disease, saddled with debt and threatened by warlike nomads or neighboring clans. The result had been an increasing neglect of the soil and a flight out of the villages, with a growing concentration of large tracts of property under the control of a small number of absentee landowners who were most often residing in such remote Arab capitals as Beirut and Damascus, Cairo and Kuwait. Additionally, travelers to Palestine from the Western world did leave records of what they saw there. The motif throughout their accounts is dismal. The land was empty, neglected, abandoned, desolate, fallen into ruin. An English pilgrim in 1590 explained, quote,
"Nothing there to be seen but a little of the old walls which is yet remaining, and all the rest is grass, moss, and weeds."
End quote. In 1867, the president of Harvard University, Charles Willis Eliot, stated, quote,
"A beautiful sea lies unbosomed among the Galilean hills, in the midst of that land once possessed by Zebulun and Naphtali, Asher and Dan. Life here was once idyllic, now it is the scene of desolation and misery."
End quote. Also in 1867, upon traveling there, Mark Twain had this to say, quote,
"There is not a solitary village throughout its whole extent, not for 30 miles in either direction. One may ride 10 miles hereabouts and not see 10 human beings. For the sort of solitude to make one dreary, come to Galilee. Nazareth is forlorn, Jericho lies in a mouldering ruin, Bethlehem and Bethany in their poverty and humiliation, untenanted by any living creature. A desolate country whose soil is rich enough but is given over wholly to weeds. A silent, mournful expanse, a desolation. We never saw a human being on the whole route, hardly a tree or shrub anywhere. Even the olive tree and the cactus, the fast friends of a worthless soil, had almost deserted the country. Palestine sits in sackcloth and ashes, desolate and unlovely."
End quote.